The first time I walked into the Ember Lounge, it wasn't with the intention of changing my life. I had only gone in to escape the noise of the world and the mess of my thoughts. The faint lighting, the quiet hum of jazz music, and the faint smell of leather and oak offered the kind of solace I hadn't realized I was desperate for. That's when I saw him. Standing behind the bar, mixing drinks with an effortless rhythm, was a man who seemed to belong in a painting rather than a dimly lit room. His dark hair curled slightly at the ends, his sharp jawline was dusted with stubble, and his eyes were a shade of green that could drown you if you let them. I didn't know it then, but Sam was about to become more than the bartender who handed me a drink. I sat down at the far end of the bar, keeping my head low as I pulled my jacket tighter around me. The storm outside had soaked me to the bone, and the last thing I wanted was attention. But Sam noticed me anyway. "What'll it be?" he asked, his voice low and smooth, with just a hint of curiosity. I hesitated. Something strong. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Rough day." "You could say that," I replied, not offering any more than I needed to. He nodded, as if he understood, and turned to mix my drink. His hands moved with practiced ease, his muscles flexing under the rolled-up sleeves of his shirt. I couldn't stop myself from watching him, captivated by the precision and grace in his movements. When he set the glass in front of me, he leaned in just slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "This one's on me." I looked up, startled by his generosity. "You don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted, his eyes meeting mine. "Sometimes a drink isn't just a drink." I didn't know what he meant by that, but the way he said it made my chest tighten. Over the next few weeks, the Ember Lounge became my sanctuary. Sam was always there, ready with a drink and a quiet smile that warmed me in ways no alcohol ever could. He had a way of drawing me out of my shell without prying, of making me feel seen without demanding more than I was willing to give. One night, after the bar had emptied out and the lights had dimmed even further, he leaned against the counter and gave me a look that sent shivers down my spine. "You know," he said, his voice low and deliberate, "I've seen a lot of people walk through those doors. But you're different." I blinked, caught off guard by the intensity in his gaze. "Different how?" He shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "You're real. Honest. Even when you don't say much." My heart raced at his words, but I forced myself to play it cool. "I could say the same about you." He laughed softly, the sound warm and intimate in the quiet room. "Maybe that's why we get along so well." There was a pause, the kind that was heavy with unspoken possibilities. Then, without thinking, I asked, "What happens when the bartender needs someone to pour him a drink?" His smile faltered, just for a moment, before he stepped around the bar and closed the distance between us. "Maybe," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper, "he doesn't need a drink. Maybe he just needs someone to understand." From there, the tension between us only grew. Every shared glance, every lingering touch, every late-night conversation brought us closer to the edge of something neither of us could ignore. One night, after a particularly brutal storm had kept most customers away, Sam locked the front door and turned to me with a look that made my knees weak. "Stay a little longer," he said, his voice a mix of vulnerability and desire. I nodded, unable to trust myself to speak. As the rain continued to pour outside, we sat together in the dim light of the bar, our knees brushing under the table. Sam reached out, his fingers grazing mine, and the simple touch sent a jolt of electricity through me. "I've been waiting for the right moment," he admitted, his voice trembling slightly, "to tell you how I feel." I looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest. "And how do you feel?" Instead of answering, he leaned in and kissed me. It was slow and deliberate, his lips warm and soft against mine. He tasted faintly of whiskey and something uniquely his, and I couldn't help but melt into him. The kiss was too good, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. The sound of the storm faded into the background, and all that mattered was the feel of Sam's lips against mine, the heat between us building with each passing second. My heart tingled, and every nerve in my body seemed to hum with anticipation. When we finally pulled away, breathless, I couldn't look him in the eyes. The gravity of what we had just done hung in the air, thick and undeniable. "Sam," I whispered, my voice trembling, "what now?" He took a deep breath, his gaze softening. "Now we figure this out together. He reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. I've been afraid of this. Afraid of how much I want you. But it feels right, doesn't it? I nodded, my throat tight. But it's complicated. I don't know what this means for us, for everything else. He tilted his head, a small smile playing at the corner of his lips. I don't have all the answers. But I do know I want to explore this with you, wherever it leads. His words hit me like a wave, and for the first time in a long while, I felt both terrified and excited. We had crossed a line, and there was no going back now. Sam's eyes darkened as he studied me, searching for hesitation, doubt, anything that would make him stop. But I had none. I wanted him. The storm outside raged on, rain hammering against the windows, but inside the bar, it was quiet, intimate. Just the two of us, tangled in the aftermath of a kiss that had set my world on fire. Sam stood first, his grip firm but careful as he pulled me to my feet. Neither of us spoke as he backed me toward the worn leather booth in the corner, his eyes never leaving mine. "Tell me if you want to stop," he murmured, his breath ghosting over my lips. I didn't. I pulled him down to me, capturing his lips again, this time with more urgency. His hands skimmed my sides, fingers digging into my waist as he settled between my legs. The first slow grind of his hips sent a shudder through me, a delicious kind of torment that left me gasping against his mouth. "Sam," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the thunder outside. He responded with a low groan, his teeth scraping against my jaw before moving lower, lips trailing a path down my neck. Each kiss, each slow press of his body against mine, unraveled me. My head fell back against the booth, pleasure coiling low in my stomach as he took his time, teasing me with every deliberate touch. The bar was empty. The world outside was drowning in rain. And here we were, lost in each other, in something that felt dangerous and inevitable all at once. When he finally pulled back, his forehead resting against mine, I knew we had shattered whatever boundary once existed between us. "You like this, don't you?" he asked. His voice was low, edged with control. The waiting, the wanting. I couldn't speak. My body answered for me, leaning into him, pulse hammering as he dragged his fingertips down my chest, lower, slower, just enough to make me crave more. Then his hand was on me. Firm. Sure. No hesitation. I gasped, my hips jerking as he palmed me through my jeans. His smirk was dark, knowing. He loved seeing me like this, undone, desperate, mine to ruin. "Tell me," he murmured against my ear, his fingers working me with ruthless precision. "Tell me how bad you want this." A choked moan escaped my lips. "Sam." His grip tightened, stroking me slow, agonizing, pushing me to the edge but never letting me fall. He watched me, studying every reaction, every twitch, every breathless plea I couldn't hold back. "You're so perfect like this," he groaned, his own breath ragged as I writhed beneath his touch. "So damn good for me." The heat coiled tighter, pleasure blurring into something dangerous, something uncontrollable. My hands clutched his shoulders, nails digging in as the tension shattered. And then, I broke. Sam didn't look away, didn't stop, didn't let me go as I came undone beneath his touch. His name spilled from my lips, raw and wrecked, and he drank it in like he'd been starving for it. When it was over, he pulled me close, his breath still heavy, his lips brushing against my temple. "Now," he murmured, his voice thick with promise. "What are we going to do about this?" I already knew. There was no stopping now,